Hey, true believers. Chris Matt coming at you with Batman 101. And I had to stop and after I read this and really think about it for a minute. And this issue, this is definitely where Batman needs to be going. It's kind of like what Grant Morrison did with Green Lantern, going back to basics. Because if you think about it, after Flashpoint, and Snyder, King, and everyone else that kind of took on Batman, it was very super tech or very cosmic. Batman had suits that could fly him to Apocalypse. He had big armored suits that could fight the Justice League. And even as Tinian pointed out in the beginning of his run, how Batman would have Batmobiles that would just come right off the assembly line, and all sorts of like AI drones. And then the Joker War happened, where Selina got tricked. The underbroker took all of Batman's money, and everyone thinks that it was Bruce Wayne, and it was just a whole muck of a mess. Now, I normally don't like to read a lot, but these first few pages are really important about what I'm talking about. So before we start this, let's talk about After the Laughter. This is James Tinian writing, Guillaume March artist, Tomu Moray colors, Clayton Cowles letters. Here's everyone else that's working on the book, and Batman was created by Bill Finger with Bob Kane. So it starts out and he goes, you're saying, Bruce, do you remember? He's like, I'm trying to remember. Remember what? Gotham City. How it used to feel. Not at the beginning, but at the height of it. When it was all working so well. And then you flip the page, and Bruce is essentially reminiscing. And while he's reminiscing, you get this absolutely gorgeous splash page. And with the colors, this very much minus the more Tim Drake style Robin suit, very akin to Neil Adams era and the Denny O'Neil era. So good on the art team for throwing that back like that to kind of show how far back Bruce is remembering. So with that said, let's continue on. I'd be at the Manor or the office when the bat signal would come up over Gotham City. You could blindfold and drug me, and I could always find my way to that old rooftop. And I know that Commissioner Gordon would be there waiting for me, with a few lines about the city, and the clues that would start my hunt for whoever was terrorizing Gotham. Sooner than I could blink, I'd be on that case, sometimes alone, sometimes with one of my partners, deciding on the likeliness of the suspect hundreds of feet above the city streets, which of my foes was behind the latest attack. Soon enough, I'd be back in the cave, Alfred twisting my arm to eat or drink something, to get some sleep, but I'd be there, right at edge, knowing that if I thought long and hard about each of the clues in front of me, I'd uncover the scale and source of the threat and resolve it. And that's how it would happen, time and time again. And I knew that every step of the way, I could rely on that system, that structure. But now, there's no Gordon at the bat signal. There's no Robin at my side. There's no Alfred in the cave. There's no approximating that old Gotham anymore. So here, you find out that he's talking to Selina. In just those 2 pages, they give you the chills because you know that there's change coming. And Selina's like, get that look, you have that look on your face. And she's like, what look? And she's basically saying that you're about to make a decision. And it's going to hurt and change both of our lives. And so Bruce actually says the Joker is right. I've been doing this all wrong. Now after that, you're like, dang, what is going on here? Because you're thinking, what's Batman talking about? But before we can even get into that, we get into which I like the paneling here. This is Bruce fighting Grifter. As you guys have seen my reviews, I've been reviewing Jim Lee's old school Wildcat comics from Image. And after, because Jim Lee was part of Marvel, he was part of the exodus that happened back in, 93, 94 with Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld, Mark Silvestri, Jim Valentino, Eric Larson. I think those were all the big names. Then, of course, Jim himself. But eventually down the road, Jim got sought after DC, and he made a deal and took his Wildstorm universe with him. And that's how the DC acquired the Wildcats. So from a fan's point of view, I'm excited to see Grifter here and seeing that him and Batman are going blow for blow. The only thing that's kind of chapping my butt a little bit is it seems like whenever DC tries to bring any of the Wildstorm characters in, it doesn't work. And what I mean by that, for example, during the New 52, when they relaunched Teen Titans, I don't remember the arc off the top of my head, but essentially it was a lab where the New 52 Superboy was being created. The Titans infiltrate it, and the security team that's kind of been working with Superboy and whatnot, you find out that it's members of Gen 13. I think it's Fairchild, and I think the guy's name was Crush. I don't remember his name, but it just didn't work out. They didn't sound the same, and it was very, like, the book didn't last, just to sum it up that way. So if Tynion here is trying to bring back the Wildcats, I'm hoping that this is handled with better pizzazz, because what they did during the New 52 was just atrocious. But here you find out that after the Joker War, Lucius hired Grifter as a bodyguard because, he's talking about how the Jokers are still out there, and he kind of has a target on his back because, he's part of the Wayne Foundation. And after Alfred died, through Tomasi's Detective Comics and Tynion's early Batman run, Bruce kind of leaned heavily into Lucius to be the new Alfred. And it was fun. It was interesting. But you can see the toll that is taken on Lucius Fox. Now, after everything that happened with the Joker War, all of Bruce's money, like every penny, Lucius Fox is hanging on to. So we got a lot of loose ends going on. After all the things with Punchline and her trial, Lucius even says, my daughter showed me a free Punchline t-shirt, and I almost called the company and bought him out to stop it. So Lucius is a little bitter at Bruce for having to get drug into all this, because he says, the city was in chaos. We have this kid going out and killing the Jokers. And the Jokers were able, after the war, to just take off their masks and walk away. They could be friends, colleagues. We don't know. So there's a little bit of a strain between their relationship. Like, they still respect one another. They're close. Not as close as Bruce and Alfred were, but they're close nonetheless. Now, what Lucius is doing is he's kind of trying to ease into, because of what happened, people, for the most part, understand that Bruce Wayne wasn't responsible for this, but people are going to be looking at you harder. And if you want me to give you the money back, I will. But you're not going to be able to operate as freely as Batman, because you're going to have people scrutinizing your every move. He goes, or I could let you keep the money. I'm not going to pretend that doesn't benefit me or my family, Bruce. But there's an argument to be made. Because he's basically saying that Wayne Industries is ready to buy out Bruce's seat and just kind of throw him a few, what do you call it? like annual like payments and info on what's going on, but it keeps him out of the public eye, so to speak. So he says, if you don't want the money, you're going to be Batman, but you're going to be Batman on a budget. So right here, and I like how Tinian, and this is okay. At the beginning when I said let's read this because it's going to make sense in a minute, and I was talking about, Scott Snyder's run and how everyone kind of utilized Batman as this big tech person. He goes, without the money, you'll be under far less scrutiny, and you'll be able to continue to operate as Batman. But it'll have to be a leaner Batman. And I like how Tinian kind of states the obvious here, but it's organic and it doesn't feel like he's, hate on anything that happened before, but we're bringing Batman back to basics. No more rocket ships or satellites or sophisticated AI, drones that know how you're going to punch before you do. You won't be able to print high-tech Batmobiles off an industrial printer beneath Wayne Industries. And I like how Lucius, in all of this, he gets a moment of levity, and he goes, and if you break a car, you'll need to fix it yourself. So we get another moment like with what's his name, Grifter. And the reason I want to show this is because I think Tinian will successfully bring the Wildcats in. Because every time Tinian touches something that's close to Batman like this, it's always been good. Like when they did Rebirth and they put him on Detective Comics, phenomenal run. They got rid of King, put him on Batman. Batman is, again, one of the highest selling books. So I think the Wildcats are going to be in good hands. But check this out. Bruce is looking at Grifter. He goes, I know who your boss is. Tell him that I know what Halo is. Tell him that it may be changing, but this is still my city. And I'm watching. Woohoo! So, Halo Industries, for those of you that haven't watched any of the Wildcat reviews or really read the comics, it's run by Jacob Marlowe, who, just like the Wildcats, was a descendant of the Cherubim, which are the good aliens that crash landed on Earth, and became successfully rich with the help of Void to stop. Oh God, what's the villain's name? I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I keep thinking of what Spartan always says in the cartoon. Oh, we'll get old Torchhead. I can't remember his name. But anyway, I'm hoping that we're going to get to see the rest of the Wildcats. Because Grifter, yes, is my favorite. But I love Spartan, Voodoo, Maul. Grifter's love interest, what's her name? The white hair. Zealot. So I'm really hoping, and I'm thinking that on this cover here, there's a little bit of an Easter egg. Because if you look at his watch, there's the Wildcats logo. So here's hoping that Tinian, as he is successfully bringing Batman back to basics, I'm hoping that he can, through the pages of Batman, which fingers crossed is going to happen, will bring the Wildcats back to form from the 90s. So here's hoping. And again, I'm just glad that we're kind of getting away from the tech-heavy Batman that a lot of writers have been relying on, and we're getting back to Batman busting heads on the streets. And there's also a big reveal of what he's going to do, which kind of reminds me of an arc that Denny O'Neil did. But he basically tells Selina, I need to work on myself. I need to find a way to live a life without Alfred and forcing somebody into it, meaning Lucius. So this is just so exciting, so much, potential to see Batman back at street level as he once was, just busting heads in and solving crimes. So with all that said, guys, if you've enjoyed this comic book, please, first and foremost, support your local comic shop and pick up a copy. If you've enjoyed this review, please, first and foremost, hit that little battering bell next to subscribe. That way, as we continue to upload content, you guys will get notified. come to the channel, and we love talking with y'all and hearing your feedback down in the comments below or on our social media pages, which I will make sure to leave the links down in the description. And with all that said, thank you so much for stopping by. I hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.